there is a significant change in the way the GOP is talked about and the way Republicans are being dealt with, and that is people are learning to be honest about them because we can no longer afford to pretend like it's a normal political party. Rusty Bowers was formerly a Republican representative. He is one of the few who actually participated in the January 6th committee. He was a witness because he witnessed crime. Bear in mind that the majority of witnesses called either didn't respond or clung to pleading the fifth, meaning that we will not get resolution on this until it goes through a court of law. But that said, Rusty Bowers deserves credit because he did his part. Here he is on MSNBC explaining why he changed his tune on Trump. Because he initially, following his January 6th testimony, he initially said he would vote for Trump again. Maddeningly. But he stopped saying that, and he deserves credit at least for that. Let's listen.
Today is the anniversary of the January 6th insurrection, a solemn day. The president marking it with a ceremony, even as Congress's troubled start continues to dominate Washington. The DOJ has its own accountability going for the attack, announcing over 950 people have now been charged. The new Congress, of course, is taking over from the first Congress to probe those horrific attacks, fresh off the new extensive report that identifies Trump as the central cause of January 6th. The probe exposing many parts of the plot that were not initially widely known, including the lengths Trump went to demand illegal actions by state officials, many of whom defied him, including Arizona Republican Rusty Bowers, who refused to abuse his power as the state House Speaker on behalf of Trump.
I said, look, you are asking me to do something that is counter to my oath when I swore to the Constitution to uphold it. Anything that would say to me, you have a doubt, deny your oath. I will not do that.
Today, the president honoring Bowers' courage and approach with the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Rusty put his obligation to the Constitution and his country ahead of everything when he refused intense political pressure to decertify the 2020 election results. His courage is probably the reason why he's lost his primary last year. Rusty, you're an example, is a demonstration to every young man and woman thinking about entering politics about what integrity is all about.
Fresh from the White House and that honor, former Speaker Rusty Bowers joins us now. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thanks, Ari. Good to be here.
What does receiving this medal today mean to you?
Oh, I'm hoping the ride is now over. But the antics down the street show that there's still some challenges ahead. But I think generally the people, it's not that they don't want to continue something bad. They want to continue something solid. They want to be able to depend on government. They can differ. These sides can differ greatly, but you have to maintain the institutional ability to differ.
He's referring
and if you
to the
don't
House
do
Speaker
it
vote.
right, you don't have an institution. And I'm hoping that they'll respect the marvel that's just down the street from where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah, that makes sense when you put it like that. We have been tracking so much of the evidence. You lived through it, and then there's a process by which it's under investigation.
We are going into
I want to ask you about this since I have the benefit of interviewing you for the first time. John Eastman, who was really one of the most extreme or fringe figures trying to overthrow the election, according to your testimony, the evidence in the report, as late as January 4th, was still calling you, urging you to, quote, hold a vote to decertify Arizona's presidential electors. Eastman allegedly saying, quote, just do it and let the court sort it out. Based on your experience.
That right there. I say this so often, and it's painful because it's true. That right there is enough to arrest Eastman. It's a matter of public record now. There's no reason John Eastman should be free right now. No just reason that he should be free right now. We have to start attending to this. Enough.
By Arizona's presidential electors. Eastman allegedly saying, quote, just do it and let the court sort it out. Based on your experience, was it your understanding that Mr. Eastman thought these were unlawful, unconstitutional requests, and he was sort of secretly urging you to do them? Give us your view of it at that time.
I remember the conversations. John wasn't trying, the impetus was, is this legal? What is the legal benefit or the opportunity or the structure that allows you to do such a thing? And because he was respected by counsel, and they wanted to find out from him. And as we walked through the conversation, I kept parrying. He would thrust and I would parry. And in the end, we just said, John, has there ever been anybody tried to do this? And he said, no. And I said, then you want me to put my state through this? And he said, just do it and let the courts figure it out. It was that kind of it wasn't like, just do it, Rusty, let the courts do it. He just was like, it didn't mean that much to have the courts do it. And I just said, no. Every one of us along the way, Ari, every one of us has a responsibility. I'm not going to punt it down the road. If it's mine, I got to face it.
Yeah.
And I haven't always been perfect. But so when
we got Tony in the comments saying you deserve way more subs. True. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the new subscriber. I hope you enjoy all this content. On a related note, we got to give credit where it's due, because I would not hesitate to tear into this guy normally, but right here, this is exactly what we need from every politician. There was way back in the day an old saying in politics: the buck stops here. That means if you can take responsibility for something, you do take responsibility for it. He did. A lot of the J6 plan relied on laziness and cowardice. Those two things. Don't fight this. Pass it to somebody else. You keep passing it until we find the link in this chain that will break. In this case, Trump, who appointed a ton of judges, was confident that if he could get this in the courts, enough, not all, but enough, would say that there was something askew, that he could do away with the election. That was more or less the plan. He was just looking for an excuse.
he said that, we said, my counsel and I, no, we're not, thank you for your time. We're not going to do that.
Good man.
Do you think, based on everything we've seen, that someone like Mr. Eastman, Mr. Clark, the aforementioned, Mr. Giuliani, that there should be legal accountability for them based on your vantage point? Yes. I'm not asking you to be a judge, but if you're a witness and you see a mugging in the street, you say, well, I hope they look into it. Hope they arrest that guy. He's still entitled to process. And other times you say, well, they bumped into each other. I don't think it was that. You have a real front row seat. Do you think there should be accountability for, say, any of those people I mentioned?
He knows what politicians do, and I am glad he is making it clear. He's saying, look, you can answer this GD question. We're not asking you, before you say I'm not a prosecutor, we're not asking you to be a prosecutor. Give us your opinion. Still, we're going to get some dancing.
Everybody is accountable, one way or the other. You might be accountable for bad advice. You might be accountable for fraud. There's a difference. And I'm not the prosecutor, and as you said, I'm not the judge. Mm-hmm. But we put a lot of stock in John Eastman because he has a great history. He's a brilliant guy.
And all that. Yeah, I don't know what he was using it for, but yeah.
It floored me. It floored me that he would take this position. And since that time, it's floored me that he would take these positions. So, but as they see fit,
Get there.
I can only testify to what he said to me. I know that others have talked to him as well on the subject, or I should say, I'm led to believe that others have. I wasn't part of the conversation. But everybody has to be accountable.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
You are.
Sure.
All right. So to sum it up, that was a weak-willed way of saying yes. Ari Melber asks, should these people be held legally accountable? That's a straightforward question. Rusty Bowers does the thing that is always goddamn done, where he either he feels obligated to say yes for some reason, or to answer correctly for some reason, or he wants to. He genuinely wants to. But he's not brave enough to just say yes. He has to say, everybody should be accountable. Yes is the answer. To sum it up, oh, poor Ari. I'm sorry, Ari.
Yes.
Here we go. Well, there we got it. Yeah, Ari says, should they be held legally accountable? Rusty Bowers takes 3 paragraphs to say yes. If everybody should be, that includes John Eastman.
So the president alluded to your campaign today while honoring you. A lot of people, including President Biden, hold you in high regard. I do want to ask you about the political history here, partly because I was just so personally interested. One of the parts about this job, sometimes you keep reading about Rusty Bowers. I watched your testimony, which was quite impressive. And then I saw, and I'll remind viewers, that around June, after everything you said, you publicly said if Trump were the nominee against Biden, you would vote for him again. By July, you said actually you'd never vote for him. I bring this up only, and obviously you could take it, you're a solid guy yourself, to use your word of the day. I bring it up only to get you on the record of when you said that the first time. Is that because even after all this in the Republican Party, that's the level of pressure? Or what do you say about all of that?
No, I think everybody has a defensive mechanism. My vote is sacred to me. Yours is to you. And so typically when people for the last 30 years say, so how are you going to vote on this issue? When they know that I may not be the most happy with my party guy. But I usually just default to the position, hey, if he makes it through the primary, I vote for him. And it was kind of that thing. I got off the plane, I turned a corner, there's the lady with the microphone here. Are you going to vote for me? It wasn't a lot of thought going into that thing. And as I thought afterwards, I should just say, look, don't ask me, because I have an opinion.
Do you remember earlier when we were talking about sexual assault allegations and expanded that to include dramatic moments you're not prepared for, and how you usually don't act honorably, or what you would consider to be honorably? This is one of the most honest responses I have heard from a politician in general, what Rusty Bowers is saying right now. Now, I'm sure it's influenced in part by the fact that he's out of office. He's no longer running, to my knowledge, for anything. But yeah, he just came out and said it. He's like, that was my default response. That's what I had always prepared to say. The advice I actually give to people, I suppose in another field, is that if you have a reasonable expectation that you're going into a dramatic situation of any sort, think about how you will want to act practically beforehand. Think about realistically how you would want to act. And politicians know frequently they'll be asked when they disagree with the leader of their party, will you still vote for him? And he gave his default response. But, as he just pointed out there, he had a moment to think about it after. And he realized, I wish I would have given a different response. And he even then said a practical response he could have given in that same situation, even if he wasn't prepared to say no. The equivalent of it. Don't ask me. Don't ask me that question. So, a very interesting bit of insight from Rusty Bowers here. Let's let him finish.
But just don't ask me right now. But on this, I mean, when I sat there by the Secretary of State of Georgia and I heard what he said, and I put it with what I said, and put it with what other people said, and since that time, seeing how he acted, this being the former president, I just said, you know, I don't have to try to hide behind some, in Mexico they call it a dicho. I don't have to hide behind that. I can just say it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to vote for that guy.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. That's why
it is.
That's why we ask. I wanted to know. I'm running over on time. I'll give you 30 seconds. The last question I have for you, a lot of people watched you. Like I said, a lot of people took a lot from how you comported yourself, your testimony, the president honoring you today. My last question for you is simple. Are you optimistic about this American experiment right now or less so?
Interesting.
What's my alternative? Anywhere on earth, anywhere else, it's not we the people. And as long as the people will take the time to inform themselves honestly and will remember where we came from and what we've been through, go have a legislature in Mariupol. See how that goes. Try Donetsk. I don't want to be there. And so I have to be optimistic, and I am. There is so much good in America. We are a strong country if we choose to be.
So where I have to disagree with Rusty Bowers is if you stop and think about that last comment for even a moment. What do you mean anywhere else in the world it's not we the people? Is it phrased like that anywhere else in the world? Probably not. Canada, England, France. There's tons of countries where you vote, you have rights, you decide who your leader is. That's the modern way most countries operate. There is indeed still royalty in England, but they have a parliamentary system, and the royalty they have is a figurehead. It's silly, frankly. It's silly to think, well, only America is the place where there's freedom. No, there's tons of places in the world that are free. That said, I think you can be optimistic about America while still being realistic. If optimism is ultimately just the belief that things can go well, not necessarily that they will. Things can go well, but only if we act. We the people. Bernie Sanders recently put out a video saying some truth, frankly, which is that major change in America has never come from the top down. It has come from the bottom up. It has begun with grassroots movements of millions of people. And I will tell you, that is the purpose of this channel, its existence. Not simply to get people out marching in the streets, although when the time comes for such a thing, maybe we help organize those. But more practically than that, it is to take advantage of the tools that are available to us in 2023. It is possible for us to have a massive effect on politics. Use emails, use phone calls. Those millions and millions of people are generally not activated by just one person making millions and millions of phone calls. It's a handful of people calling their local representative and telling them to get to work doing the hard stuff. That's what they're paid for. If it sounds like the sort of thing that is too big of a job to do in your free time, you're right, it is. There's someone you're already paying right now to do that job for you. That's your representative. That is why we so often include the contact link for your representative, or rather how to find them. Sam Cedar recently, and we did a whole video on this, talked about how effective 5 or 6 phone calls can be. Just get 5 or 6 people to contact the same representative in the span of a week, and you will very likely see that representative out next week talking about the issue you were calling about. It is truly that effective. We can be a powerful political force. We can start holding the rich accountable. We can get big money out of politics. We can build the America that you imagine when you're optimistic about America. But we can't do nothing. Hence, what you can do.